Todd Lofborough. I'm the CEO of ViralGains. The business has been around for 4 years, and we're really all about one thing, which is maximizing consumer engagement in online video. Let me talk a little bit about what that goal is. I'm a serial entrepreneur, which my wife says is a little better than being a serial killer, but no less addictive. I've run a bunch of businesses, ranging in size from startups to multi-hundred-million-dollar businesses. And every business I run, I always start with one question. What do we need to be best in the world at? And so for ViralGains, it's one thing. We need to be best in the world at helping brands build and drive authentic connections with consumers using the power of digital video. So digital video is a very unique asset. Like a television ad, it's visual. You can tell a story. You can have sight, sound, motion. You can evoke an emotion. So it's a great storytelling medium. But unlike television, you actually know who's watching, and you can engage them in two-way conversation. It's not a one-way medium. That really changes the game for advertising. If we think about what advertising has been throughout all the years, from radio to television to print to online to display, it's always been one way. And we try to make up for that one-way mechanism by just shouting louder. It reminds me of the terrible old British Empire phrase where they used to say, look, if the natives don't understand English, just speak louder. And so we go for reach, we go for frequency, we go for impressions. But we're not listening to whether anyone cares, whether anyone likes the message. How many of you like it when a pre-roll ad comes up when you're trying to watch a piece of content? None of us like it as consumers. And yet we inflict it on people. They want to do one thing, and we say, no, 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 here's our ad. So we believe in taking a very different approach, which is what's a kind of video advertising that actually interests people? How do you know who's going to be interested, and how do you help brands tell their stories in a two-way way where you actually get authentic connections? So if we start with that premise, it starts with how and where you run your ads. The dominant format now, in our view, it's early days in video. Video's exploded on the market in the last 5 years, but we think it's inning 2 of a 9-inning ballgame. It's barely started. And the mechanisms that dominate today are not the mechanisms that ultimately will work the best. Just like when television programs first came out, they were all guys sitting behind desks talking into microphones. They were radio shows. And ultimately, television became what television could become. So one of the dominant mechanisms now is interruptive advertising. You're trying to watch one thing, and up comes an ad instead. The problem with interruptive advertising is we all have the same reaction to it. An ad. So people download ad blockers. They try to avoid it. They move it over to another tab. And the results speak for themselves. Low engagement, about 0.2% average click-through rate. If you measure brand favorability and intent, it actually goes down when the ad first starts running, which makes sense. You're annoying someone, and then the creative has to be good enough to crawl back up from that negative favorability and intent and hopefully get to positive territory before they hit the skip button or scroll by it. There are very minimal opportunities for earned engagement. And because of all of this, the way the industry charges for them, you're trying to charge before someone can skip it or scroll by it. So the dominant billing says, hey, as long as someone's watched 2 seconds of it, with the sound off, with half the ad on the screen, we'll charge for that. We think that's terrible, because that really isn't evidence of engagement of any sort with the video. So we take a very different approach. Well, we put ads in choice-based environments, native, targeted in a way that's likely to be interesting to that particular consumer. And the difference is profound. You get much higher interaction rates, from anywhere from 2 to 8% click-throughs, higher brand favorability and intent, deep engagement with the content if you get it right, and we back it up in the way that we actually charge customers. Customer does not pay for a video ad unless someone chooses to watch it and watches it through to completion or to 30 seconds, depending on how long it is. So if it's less than 30 seconds, it's through to completion. So it starts with the premise that you're trying to build an authentic connection. Next, you say, okay, how do you put it in native environments where people are likely to engage? And what's the science of figuring out who's likely to engage with a particular piece of video creative? Well, it's a really interesting problem. My background is as an entrepreneur, but also as a teacher of artificial intelligence. I taught for about 8 years at Harvard and MIT in this whole area of AI. And AI is coming in big time into the advertising field, just as it came in 10, 15 years ago into the finance field. The difference is in advertising, every asset, every ad is in fact a unique thing. And trying to predict if someone will engage with one ad has to be done at the level of that one individual advertisement. So we break it down into 3 buckets. Smart data. You hear a lot about data. I'm going to talk about what makes data smart. Driving two-way conversation, moving from one-way talking at someone to two-way talking with someone. And finally, thinking of ads as video journeys. And the conversation around these 3 and a couple of examples will set up our conversation with the panel. So what is smart data? All of these things sit on top of existing infrastructure. What's really wonderful about technology is each wave of technology builds on the last one. Once the internet was invented, websites could be built on top of that. Once we had websites, we could start to do advertising and commerce and so on and so on. So the first platform that emerged for digital video was the publishing or the inventory layer. You've got publishers themselves, online publishers. You've got networks of publishers like ad networks who essentially buy up inventory from publishers and resell it. And you've got supply-side platforms where you can actually go in and bid on and find opportunities to place ads. And then you have the walled gardens, most principally a Facebook or a YouTube, where you can get in, but your data stays in. You can't take it out. But they offer a very broad set of audience they can reach. On top of those that inventory layer, which is really a question of where is the ad, sits the data layer. The data layer is fascinating because all of a sudden, you're not paying for the publication, you're paying for the individual. I have a friend who reads the Washington Post online and reads the Wall Street Journal and plays Clash of Clans, which is an online game. Now, why should I pay 10 times more to find that person on the Washington Post than I pay to find them on Clash of Clans? It's the same person. So that one insight changes the game because all of a sudden you can reach through the publication to the individual. And just to give you an order of magnitude, these data management players are folks like Crux and Exalate and others. They, on average, have about 4,000 data points on every one of us that you can use to figure out who it is who's watching and how do you reach more people like them. So what ViralGains has done is built a layer on top of the inventory layer and the data layer. We call it the engagement layer. And it's about not driving efficiency, but effectiveness. So how do you know someone's going to engage with this particular ad? How do you measure that they've engaged? And how do you measure that they're moving down a path toward purchase? So I'll show you an example. This is an ad running on a web page, and I have it running without the sound on because I want to show you what information the algorithms are looking at when they're deciding whether or not a person's going to engage in this ad. They're looking at who the person is, what you know about the person, what audience segments they're in. They can look at things like personality and geography in some cases. You also need to know things about the ad. How long is it? Is it sad or happy? What's the emotional resonance? How does it make people feel? What's the creative message? When is it running? As Erica said, 6 in the morning on the iPhone, in bed, on a Wi-Fi connection is going to be different than 3 in the afternoon in a taxi on a cell connection. In one case, you might watch a 2-minute video. In another case, you probably don't want to. So when is important. Where are they? Where does it sit? Excuse me. What publication, what page, what place on the page, what content is it surrounded by? All of these things are part of great placement. And what is the content of the page? There's a lot of controversy now around user-generated content. In particular, YouTube has gotten hit a lot on this for running ads next to just terrible content, ISIS recruiting videos and horrific sexual violence and things. And so the context in which something sits is extremely important to the advertiser and the brand experience. How they're connected, we talked about Wi-Fi, cell versus browser. And finally, I alluded to the idea of two-way conversation. Think for a minute, break the wall of advertising that says advertising is about talking at people, and start thinking about advertising as talking with people. So if you start to ask questions in your ads of those very consumers who you've engaged, questions like, can you see yourself buying this car? Or I'm likely to buy. You can use the information you're gathering in the unit to optimize who you're showing the ad to. More people like the ones who said they're likely to buy. You can use it to build segments to do your Facebook buy and other social buys that you'll do later. And you can use it to build audiences for your next campaign. So you have a better understanding coming from your advertising about who's engaging with your message and how to find more people like them. So that's smart data. And there's an example. So at the end of that Audi ad, what pops up is, give us your opinion. How likely are you to visit an Audi dealership and schedule a test drive? A good friend named Mike Accavetti used to be the CMO of Honda and of Acura. And we had Mike in our office the other day talking about his role as a CMO and kind of what really moves the needle in his world. And he said something that really stuck with me. And I won't get the numbers exactly right. But he said, look, I had a budget of about $500 million a year to spend on advertising. And my peer over on the revenue side, the head of sales, had a budget of about $3 billion a year to spend on sales incentives. 2.9% financing, 0% financing, come down to the dealer, get $1,000 cash back. He said, if I could show my CEO that $500 million moved from sales incentives to advertising would move the needle on test drives, which is really their proxy for sales in the auto business, I'd have twice as much to spend. But the advertising and marketing community can't give me that data that's connected to the thing I'm looking for, which is in fact driving test drives. And that's what's starting to change with digital video. You can actually understand where people are in terms of brand preference, brand affinity, purchase intent, and the things that matter to advertisers. So this is one of the things that gets me so passionate about this space. So here's another example. You're optimizing for the viewers who are most likely to engage. That's the function you're scoring toward. And you're doing it using billions of data points about places you could put ads and who's there and who engages. And I'll give you two examples. We call it attitudinal and behavioral signals, but in plain English, look at their attitude and look at their behavior. Their attitude is how a person feels. So you can ask a question like, which product would you buy? All of a sudden you know that when I go to buy paper towels, and this is true, we go to BJ's and we buy paper towels by bulk. And for the for the brand to know that about my buying habits tells me what ad I should see next and which ones I shouldn't see. Behavior is how a person acts. So at the end of a video, this is an example from a protein shake. What kind of workout do I do? High intensity, weightlifting, or cardio? So this is a video carousel where this brand has built multiple creative assets. The first one they're paying to place, but the second and the third and the fourth one that someone watched is all earned media. So you're sending them down a journey with the brand. Once they get into one ad, they can move through others if your content is good. So I'll go through 4 examples, and then we'll bring up our panel. I think one of the big changes that's happening in video, and think of this radio on TV analogy. Whenever a new platform comes along, people first use it the way the old platform was used. So people often buy video thinking like TV. I'm looking for reach. I'm looking for impressions. I need gross rating points on TV. How do I get the equivalent impressions on digital video? Digital video is fundamentally different because of this two-way conversation and because you can know exactly who you're talking to. So one of the implications of that is you can use it for more than just branding. So most digital video advertisements today sit at the front end of the funnel. They're about brand. They're about building the brand and the affinity for the brand. But you can actually use videos at all places in the funnel. Awareness, consideration, purchase intent, and even conversion. And I'll just do a single example of each. So awareness, something like Muscle Milk has a terrific campaign we'll actually show you a little bit later, where they, at the end of the first video, they ask what sport you do. And essentially, they're finding out by seeing which video you click on next. So as you build brand awareness, you take someone through a sequences of videos and you learn things about them. Are they looking at the analytical video or the emotional one? Is there one sport they like versus another? So that's awareness. Consideration, sentiment survey. This is a paper towel brand we'll call Strawny. So at the end of it, you might ask a question like, how likely are you to buy Strawny paper towels? Well, all of a sudden, asking that one question and getting the level of response you get from an engaged viewer, which is 6%, 8%, 10% responses to these surveys, you're building tens of thousands of data points about who your audience is, who are your loyalists, who your audience is, who are maybe loyal to your competitor, the ones who give it 1 or 2 stars. And how do you go about conquesting those customers, and how do you turn your loyalists into brand advocates? So two-way conversation. Intent. What is your intent? This is a retailer of sporting gear and camping gear. What gear are you interested in? So you start with an ad designed to drive brand awareness and then move them into hiking, skiing, climbing, the particular product area that that person is interested in. So you see how once you break this wall down and say, wait a minute, this is two-way conversation. This is not one-way advocacy. You have a lot of opportunities. And finally, conversion or submission form. I already mentioned Mike Accavetti's comment about, look, in auto, their ultimate measure of success in advertising is what they call butts in seats. How many people came in and did a test drive? And so you can actually, right from the unit, capture email capture and also do things like build and price and actually do more of that within the unit without necessarily having to jump them to a web page. Keep their attention once they're engaged, engage them in conversation, and move them down the funnel. All right, with that background on video and sort of queuing up these issues of art and science and kind of the ethics of what we're paying for a little bit, I'd like to introduce the panel briefly and then have them introduce themselves. So if you guys could come up. We have Noah King, VP of Social Media at Socialize, Rob Schipple, SVP and Director of Design Experience at Arnold Worldwide, and Marissa Swayze, who's Vice President of Digital Content Distribution at Weber Shandwick. So please welcome the panelists. Welcome, guys. Have a seat. So we've got a lively set of topics to talk about. I'm going to introduce each topic with a little bit of a story, and then I've got questions for these guys, and should be a fun discussion. So let's start by just having each of you introduce yourselves, give a little bit more on your background, and why you're in video, why that's where you've chosen to put your career.
Thought we should do ladies first because of the KEDS presentation. But I'll go first. I'm Rob Schipple. I'm at Arnold Worldwide, Havas company, and I work in the newly minted experience design group. And Arnold, within Havas, has a heritage going back 50, 60 years doing broadcast, radio, everything Todd was talking about. And it's been really interesting being a part of a group that's starting to change that perspective and adapt to how things are changing through the technologies and the array of experiences we have at our disposal as storytellers today. So I'm excited and humbled to be here and look forward to talking with you guys.
Hey guys, I'm Noah King. I'm at Socialize, which is part of Havas Media. I've actually changed my career quite a few times. I wouldn't necessarily say I've committed my career to video, but I have committed my career to innovation, product development, and really kind of chasing after what's next. I got started in social media as a community manager back in the day, and now paid media is a big part of what's sort of become social. And we do a lot of video distribution, both on social and with native partners. And really, again, we're trying to go where things are heading next. As Wayne Gretzky says, go where the puck is heading, not where it is.
And I'm Marissa Swayze. I'm Vice President at Weber Shandwick. I lead our paid media team in Boston. I actually have a different trajectory. I started my career in public relations. I worked in the traditional public relations for several years, many years, and then 8 years ago or so transitioned over into digital, and then about 3 years ago really founded the paid team at Weber in Boston. There was certainly a need, and so we've been building it from the ground up for our New England offices.